Podcasting from Rome, Georgia, a beautiful little spot in the northwest corner of the state near the Appalachian Mountains. You're listening to Suburban Outdoorsman with Sean and Kevin. Join us as we chronicle our journey, attempting to go from a couple of average suburban dads to competent, skilled outdoorsmen. Welcome back to the show. I'm Kevin. That's Sean.
Yes, it is.
And today we are going to be talking about water.
Yes.
Finding water, gathering water, cleaning water.
Oh, we're not talking about the water cycle?
We can talk a little bit about.
Because I prepared all wrong then.
Yeah. You've got like the whole.
Got the whole.
What's the name of the cycle? Isn't there a name for that whole cycle? Which I'm pretty sure you know since you just researched it.
Yeah, obviously.
All right, well, we'll save that for another episode. But, yeah, we're going to look at what to do if you are in a survival situation, find yourself lost out in the woods, and need water to drink.
Or on a long hiking trip.
Yeah.
You didn't bring 3 gallons of water with you. You still need to find water.
And you end up hiking for 4 days.
So not everything is survivalism. Well, I guess
it is because you need water to survive. All right, let's get started.
Yes.
So, first though, actually, you're sitting kind of weird over there.
Well, it's because I'm in pain.
Yeah?
Still.
Were you hurt yourself researching the water cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess you want me to explain what happened
here.
Yeah,
I was curious about what you...
So, yeah, I hurt my back. Evidently, I sprained my back. And I wasn't really doing anything. Like, I've hurt my back before picking up something heavy.
Yeah.
Of course, I've hurt my back before picking up a pencil. But this time I think it was just cumulative. I'd been doing a few things over the past couple weeks.
And overexerted yourself?
And it just kind of built up, that overexertion. And then I sat down and watched a movie with the kids. And then when I got up off the couch, it was pretty much like on the floor.
Oh, so did you collapse to the floor?
Yeah. And then...
did anybody record it?
No, nobody recorded it. But I ended up spending about 2 days just in bed. I had my legs up on a laundry basket.
Yeah.
So to keep the pressure off
2
my
days
spine.
laying in bed with your feet propped up?
Yep.
People bring you like food in bed and stuff too?
No, I'm really bad at being helped.
Yeah.
Kristen did do a lot to kind of help me with the pain and such. But I still got up as much as I could. At one point, I ended up having to use a walker for about a day.
Really wish you would have.
There is some video of that. I think Jonathan has some video of that.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to have to ask him.
I think so.
That could make a cool little outro.
Yeah.
For the video.
But I wasn't able to do all this other stuff I had planned. I was planning on putting a garden in.
Yeah.
I was planning on building this picket fence that I had out of pallet wood.
Yeah, I still see the pallets sitting over there.
Yeah, I got a bunch now.
Which
it's slow. I had yard work I had to do.
Yeah.
So it kind of slowed everything down. Yes, the yard looks done because Kristen cut it and her mom.
Well, what I was going to say is, and then this will we'll see how this sounds overall at the end, but we're recording in a different location today.
Yeah. Our little test recording though sounded pretty good.
Yeah, it didn't sound too bad. So instead of the office next to the drive that we normally sit in, since that's being utilized by Kristen and company today, we are recording in the van.
Yeah.
So
your minivan.
Yeah, my minivan. So I'm sitting in the middle, Sean's sitting in the back, and we've got the air conditioning so that it's actually a little bit nicer in here than it normally is in the office, because the air conditioning in the office is extremely loud.
Yeah.
So it's actually comfortable in here, and it feels more natural because we're actually looking outdoors.
Yeah, I like this.
While we're talking. So
and it kind of got rid of a little bit of the echo and a little bit of that.
Well, now if people are driving up and down the road, leaving or coming, we don't have to have that background noise in there.
No, I like it. This may be our new studio.
Yeah, this will be a good test to see. So, all right, so
it's a mobile studio too.
Yeah, we can do it anywhere. So we're gonna talk about, like, let's say for your camping, you run out of water when you're camping, maybe, or you're out on a long trip. It could be for any number of scenarios. Just, a lot of times people look at this as a survival type situation, regardless of what the cause is that puts you in that scenario.
Yeah, you are still trying to stay alive.
Yeah, so commonly held fact, I would say, but I don't really know the factualness behind it. I was doing some research on it today, though. But you could typically survive up to several weeks without food.
Right.
Gandhi was actually recorded as going 21 straight days with no food on one of his fasts. Granted, that's probably not the preferred thing to do. Definitely not for most people. But you can survive weeks without food.
Yeah.
Water is a different story.
Water, you've got 3-4 days.
So yeah,
tops.
so what I was reading today,
and that's in temperate conditions.
Yeah, so what I was reading today was, and I forget what university it was. This doctor there was talking about that typically you've got 100 hours of survival without water. So that's going to put you at just over 4 days. 4 days would be 96 hours. So typically she said 100 hours, but that's in a cool. That's in a preferred.
Yeah, if you're walking through the desert
outside,
or freezing, yeah.
Well, she said if it's cooler outside, you can stretch that a little longer. There have been reports of people going 7-8 days without water, severely dehydrated, but surviving that. But of course, like you said, if you're hiking through the woods, hiking through the snow even, you're exposed to direct sunlight, that's going to drop significantly. So typically, if you find yourself, don't drink the salt water. It's the worst thing you could possibly do. If you are in a situation where you need water to survive and you're trying, we're going to be talking about here how to find and gather water and how to make sure it's safe to drink. That's typically going to be one of your top priorities.
Yeah.
Obviously, shelter, warmth, food, those are all things you want to take into consideration, but dehydration is a very dangerous thing.
Well, and your body needs water. It's not just the hydration is part of it, but it helps with blood circulation. It helps with processing the food you eat, and it helps regulate the body temperature.
It helps.
So that's what
you start losing that water from your system, and your cognitive abilities start to decline as well.
So that's when the hyperthermia and hypothermia, hyper and hypo. So both those are dangers if you're running low on water.
And one thing I didn't know though, interesting fact I read, and I don't ever want to test this, but supposedly dying of dehydration is not painful.
No, it's actually euphoric.
Once you get over the initial thirst pangs, I guess.
Yeah.
Once you get over that initial pangs of thirst, this one doctor was saying that it's actually not an unpleasant experience.
Yeah, well, I've heard it's almost like euphoric.
Yeah.
I guess it's I forgot what I'm thinking of. That just escaped my mind. Continue.
Yeah. But
I must be dehydrated.
I just think I thought that was an interesting thing. So it's not like you're going to be crawling around in agonizing pain.
Yeah.
But I would guess that maybe that lack of pain and that almost euphoric state, like you said, starts with the cognitive decline as you start losing some of those functions. But again, that's what makes the water so important, because once you get into that state, it's going to be a lot harder for you to start taking the measures you need to get the water and get it at that point. So
I've got an interesting story, an anecdote here.
Good.
It just came into my brain. This briefly what happened, but this woman was hiking through the desert. She had plenty of water.
Yeah.
She was drinking, and she kept getting more and more. She kept declining, like her energy. She was starting to vomit. She was just in bad shape.
Yeah.
And then she got to get her rescue or whatever. She got the ambulance, paramedics came by and grabbed her. And she's like, I don't know what the problem is. I'm like almost dying here, basically. Yeah. And I keep drinking this water, but I feel like I'm dying. They gave her like a couple of crackers or a couple of pretzels or something. Yeah. Like within a couple of minutes, she was fine. Yeah. It's because there was no salt.
Yeah, she wasn't replenishing the electrolytes.
The salt.
Interesting. Yeah.
So you can't just, I guess it's hard to say, but you can't just drink, like, I guess distilled water.
Yeah, that's what I read. Like, distilled water, they say is it's not. I mean, you're still getting water. You're still getting the liquid you need.
If you have only that for a long time, you're going to start to have some
But that's
issues.
where then but once you start eating other foods and stuff like that, that's going to help. You don't want to survive just on distilled water. I mean, in an emergency situation, that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is being able to make a little distilled water if you're out in an emergency situation. But
we're also assuming you've got some alternate means of food and
so we're not going to get into that today. It's just more we're under the assumption that we've already addressed the topics, or once we at least get the water started, we'll be addressing the topics of food and shelter and fire and all that kind of stuff. So so first would be, where are you going to get water?
Right.
if you're in this kind of a situation.
And it depends where you're at.
Yeah, and again, that's there's no way we can cover every scenario and situation because that's going to vary so much based on what part of the world you're in.
We could do a podcast each about.
Yeah, I mean, even here in the United States, there could be so many different. Like if I was out in Colorado, still stranded in the mountains, a huge part of the time over the year, I've got snow.
Yeah.
That's not really going to be anything that happens here. Although here in Georgia, if we do get snow, then that goes into a completely other type of podcast of your city shutting down for weeks at a time.
Right, yeah.
Because you got an inch of snow on the ground.
It's a good time. Well, there's reason for that. Don't hate, all right? You weren't here. I was here.
Yeah, but I read about it.
I'm going to took 4
guys
hours to get home.
Lost your mind. So, but a common thing that you're going to find in a lot of areas, generally speaking, obviously the deserts and things like that will be some different, but, you got lakes, streams,
rivers.
Rivers. We've got spring. You got a spring here on the property, right?
Yeah, okay. We got a couple.
Yeah, so that's, and so again, one thing we're not going to get into as much is how do you find the river or lake or spring or, I know
we can touch on it some, but
there's techniques in regards to trying to find, if you can get, like, say, get above a tree line and look at the growth and vegetation.
And some of the stuff I was saying, if you early morning, look where the birds are headed.
Yeah.
Because first thing in the morning when the birds are starting to get out of their nests, they're going to go find some water. Also, if you see some insects swarming, but typically you're not going to have too hard of a time finding some form of water out in the woods.
And hopefully if this is a situation because you're out camping or hiking, you're going to be somewhat familiar with the terrain. You're going to know where there may be, where some water is. Now, there are certain things to go with when you're looking at these. So if let's say you find a river or a stream, one of the things that would be to the best of your ability when it comes to the water gathering is you want to try and go as far upstream as you can. You want to try and get as close to the source as possible.
Well, yeah. And for that, lakes or rivers, streams are better than standing bodies water like lake
water, yeah,
because of the moving and, like you're saying, upstream.
And then a spring would be even better if you're able to, but again, you may not know necessarily when you find, let's say you come across a small stream, you may not know right off the bat whether this is feeding from a larger river or a lake, or if it's
a road runoff. Yeah,
or if it's coming from a underground spring.
Yeah.
But that's again where it comes to trying to get as close to the head of that as you can. You know. Obviously,
so if you could walk upriver.
Yeah, walk up to the best you can. And again, it's a case of if you're dying of thirst, you don't want to spend 3 days trying to walk to the top of the spring before you drink any water, and now you've just dehydrated yourself.
Yeah.
But again,
dehydrate yourself next to a river.
Yeah, that's a thing. And if you got a lake, especially in the south here, I have seen some lakes that you get to you walk to the lake and it is just covered in a film of growth.
Yeah. Some kind of flora.
Doesn't necessarily mean that it's a dirty water.
But algae's a thing.
Yeah, and honestly,
if this is the summertime and you're seeing green, that algae can kill you.
Yeah, so you not saying that to avoid that water 100%, because we're going to talk about some stuff you could do to help
with the filtration,
utilize that water. But when you find something like that, you want to try and maybe find a spot that does not have as much of that.
Yeah.
If you're in an area where there could be the potential of a lot of lakes, and you've got some water, maybe don't necessarily, maybe try going to one of the other lakes.
Yeah.
Going to another area if you're not in an emergency situation at that point. Another way of actually finding water, and I really hadn't thought of this before, but is especially in the morning time or after rain, you can look in rocks and trees, the crevices,
the crotches.
Yeah, especially if you got a bigger tree that's got a big V shape. Right there in that crotchal area, as you just referred to it as, there may be a little puddle of water. Now, granted, that's not going to be enough to keep you going for days.
It'll give you a little boost.
Something.
And ideally, hoping it's been raining a few days.
Yeah.
And it's washed away all the gunk that likes to collect in those little.
I would still probably in that scenario. I would, if possible, try and gather a little bit of it up and maybe go through one of these other processes we're going to talk about. That's also probably a scenario where the life straw or some sort of device like that would come in really handy because you'd be able to just drink it straight from there.
And along with rainwater, if you can't collect it from these tree crotches.
Yeah.
I saw that somewhere. So. Just different means of collecting rainwater.
Yeah.
So if your bag can have some kind of a lightweight tarp.
Yeah.
It's canvas, which is heavy, but it's very useful.
Yep.
But even those little Mylar blankets that we have,
Yeah.
They're not super durable.
No, but
they'll collect some rainwater.
Yeah, if you could get it to where you've got the four corners elevated.
Yeah.
Whether it's, if you've got a spot where you could tie it between a couple trees and kind of make I wouldn't leave it hanging, especially with the Mylar blanket. You probably want it still kind of on.
You want it so it'll always start to run off. I've seen it where they'll have it just run off into something that's going to collect.
Yeah.
Some kind of bucket.
Yeah. That's true.
That way it's not holding all that water, but it is.
Yeah, but I mean, if it came down to it in a pinch, if you didn't, you could basically lay the blanket on the ground with some of your cord that you've got from your bag onto each of the four corners, with those kind of tying going up into the tree, or put a big stick in the ground, and so that the edges are curled up enough that it creates a little pool. But you want it still resting on the ground so that it's not putting.
I guess in that case you can even dig a little bit of a depression in the ground and gather a little bit more if you need it.
So, lakes, rivers, streams, and rainwater. The thing with rainwater, though, is, again, that's probably out of the choices. If you had to drink water without having any means of purifying it, rainwater's your best thing. But even with that still...
Unless you're in China
it's
or
not,
New York.
Well, that's what I was going to say. But even with the thing is this, though. Even with that, that's not always a guarantee, because of the pollutants and stuff in the air. Now, granted, you're way out in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and you're in a scenario where
you're probably safe.
You're probably not doing, not too much to worry about, but you also don't know what's blown, what else is gathered in these rain clouds before it, Again, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not speaking from a scientific point of view here. I'm speaking, again, from what I've also read and done some research on.
Yeah.
But again...
Well, it makes sense.
The rainwater is the best choice if it really came down to you had to drink water without any sort of purification. But if you're in a scenario where you can, it's probably not a bad idea to still filter it or boil it or something else just to make sure. Second choice, of course, would then be the running water from a river or a stream. Out of that category, a spring would be the best. Something coming from an underground spring would be your best choice.
That'll be clean.
But then a river or a stream, preferably with clear water. Now remember, just because it's clear water does not necessarily mean that it's contaminant or bacterial or viral free.
It's clear too.
It can be, yeah. That's the fourth choice. But like we talked about, trying to get further upstream is the best to go.
That way, if around the river bend there's not a dying moose carcass.
Yeah, that's
a dead
moose carcass.
rotting moose carcass.
Yeah,
and you're just drinking all of
everything that's
juices.
Washing all the bacteria from there. And then again, absolute. I mean, then here's where I don't know. I guess it's a gamble, because if you're in a situation where you literally have nothing, whatever happened, you fell out of a plane, somehow you got a parachute on when you fell out of the plane. So you didn't die when you hit the ground.
Use your Mylar blanket, some paracord.
And then as you were taking the parachute off, a big windstorm came and ripped the parachute away, so you have no cord, no nothing. You're literally standing there with nothing but the clothes on your back. Well, then you should have been listening to this podcast, because we probably would have taught you how to make fire out of nothing.
Yeah.
With 2 sticks and a piece of wood and all that. But anyway, let's just say you're in this situation and all you've got to drink is from a lake. Try and find the cleanest spot you possibly can.
Yeah.
And even in that state, it's really not going to... You could use your shirt as a filter. It's really not going to do anything when it comes to viral and bacteria, but it'll help clean it a little bit.
Get rid of the
But then the problem is this, though. If you're drinking water that's got some bad viruses, bacteria, and stuff in there, you really don't want dysentery.
No.
But then that's the danger you run into. Yeah. If you end up drinking dirty lake water and you give yourself diarrhea, you're going to dehydrate yourself even more.
Yeah.
But I would have a hard time being able to... I guess it's kind of like people who die of dehydration on the ocean.
Yeah.
You got all this water around you. Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. But that's the worst possible thing you can do in that scenario. If you're stranded out in the middle of an ocean on a life raft, is drink ocean water.
Yeah.
It helps you a little bit at the beginning, just to kind of quench that thirst a little bit, but then it kills you, basically.
Yeah.
So that's where the lake water thing comes into, because that is a very big gamble.
Yeah.
Of drinking that in. You have a very high probability of making the situation worse.
Well, and there's all kinds of things in a lake that could be rotting that you don't see.
You've no clue what's in there.
Besides just the natural decaying of the plants and just its natural cycles.
And then, again, we know we mentioned it a little bit, joking around, but, snow is another good thing if you're in one of those environments. But you still got to kind of be the same level of carefulness with the snow. Just because there's white snow on the ground doesn't mean you can just grab that and drink it.
You don't want to eat it.
Yeah.
Because you get frostbite.
Yeah.
So I've heard that before. Don't rely on eating snow. You should melt it first.
Melt it and drink
Bear
it.
Grylls.
Yeah. Melt it and then drink it.
Yeah.
But again, fresh snow is the best.
Yeah.
And then if you've got the availability after that, again, still being able to melt it, boil it, purify it, whatever, would be the better choices if you can.
One other thing that I saw, which I thought was really neat, and I hadn't thought about it or seen it anywhere else, but collecting plant transpiration.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I'm assuming I know what you're talking about, but I don't think it was that wordage of transpiration.
This is this wordage.
Yeah.
This is where you take like a bag.
Yeah.
So I guess you could use the Mylar.
Yeah.
And then you wrap it around like the end of a branch.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then you cinch it off on the end. I think it should probably be clear, but maybe that's not necessary.
That's what I had read. So I read about that technique under the category of distillation.
Yeah, well...
So
I guess
I know what you're talking about.
The plant is plant distilled.
Yeah.
So it's just what happens as the water's coming up from the ground, as the moisture leaves the bottom of the plants, this bag collects it.
Yeah. And what I read was the same thing, a clear or semi-clear
So
bag.
a Mylar would probably be the worst choice.
I don't know what difference that makes.
It might just be the sun coming through.
That's what I'm wondering if it has to do with
warm up the plant.
Yeah,
it'll create a little greenhouse.
But yeah, I read the same thing. That was one of the things I was going to talk about actually when we got into the category of cleaning water and distilling. But
well,
I guess that's actually a good. That's
do you
a
want to
good
get
point.
there then?
Well, I guess really that comes into a category of finding water, with what we're talking about right now, because the water from the plants is not really something you can drink until you distilled it.
Before, we could have used that as the segue into the
See, we should have planned this out better.
You see, there are some podcasts that script everything out.
Yeah, but those are boring.
We are not those podcasts.
No. Yeah, but
we come in, we're like, hey, we're going to talk about this subject.
And then we get sidetracked 20 times.
Maybe in this order. Maybe.
Well, see, and those other people that script that out all the way are probably experts in that field.
Right.
Which we are also.
Of course we are. Oh, not.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So, and I guess, you know what? I guess the whole distilling thing kind of falls in that same category as far as one of the other topics we were looking at. So using the plants to distill the water, or gather distilled water essentially, but also a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Trying to find something where, an area where you get some moist ground, digging a hole and laying a plastic sheet across it. You want to kind of weight it down on the edges with, maybe seal it with some sand and dirt around the edges with rocks to hold it down, and let the plastic drip down into the hole.
Yeah.
With a rock in the middle of that bag, so that it kind of keeps it weighted down.
And then a bucket.
And you've got your water collection underneath it.
Yeah.
An interesting thing that I was reading about was if you carried some of this in your bag, like I'd never really thought about adding this to my bag before, but I'm going to, is like some clear plastic tubing.
I've actually got some.
I've got some somewhere in my garage from when we had our fish tanks.
Well, these are clean.
These were not used in the fish tanks. We had them as supplies for our fish tanks that we didn't use.
They're not full of fish food.
But I'm going to actually get a length of that to keep in my bag.
Yeah. Well, and now I'm starting to see maybe I should keep some dang 4mm plastic.
Yeah. I've got some of that I put in there. A small, real small. I got it from Home Depot. It was a small roll of, it was like 10 feet.
Yeah.
Of the plastic, but I'm going to add some of that tubing. So the idea was, this is again not something that's going to be it's not going to be able to sustain your entire camp of water with water, but it can gather some water from the distillation process of the moisture coming up from the ground and being heated during the day.
And what I've seen with that, I've got a picture of it here actually, is if you have that water collection on the bottom, you're talking about the tubing then, having the straw go into it? Okay.
Put the tubing, that's what they were saying.
Why don't you continue?
To run the tubing wherever you're sealing it off with the rocks and the sand, run the tubing into that container.
Yeah.
Then you can just drink straight from there. That way you're not having to take this apart and rebuild it every time you need to get some water.
Maybe I can, I will save this picture and I'll post it.
All right.
Because this picture is from the Army Survival Manual.
Let me see the picture.
Well, whatever.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that similar. Yeah, and
it's
then
from
the
an
drinking
Army
tube.
Survival Manual. Yeah, so this is...
Yep.
It's pretty basic.
And again, that kind of, I think that falls into the category of what we're talking about initially of finding water, because that's not, and that's the great thing about that is that's not something that you have to do any additional purification for.
Yeah, because it's all distilled.
It's distilled water.
Yeah, and you can keep this. You don't have to
redo this.
Yeah, you can just keep
and that's
it,
the benefit with the drinking
straw.
tube. That's why I think I'm going to start adding some of that in there. Now, a third area, or not third, I don't know where the third came from because I'm pretty sure we've talked about more than 3. The final area,
this is our top 10.
The final area that I had read some information in regards to was tapping trees and vines for water and moisture.
I've heard of that.
Now,
but you're also going to get a lot of with some vines, you'll get a lot of sap to come with it.
Yeah, well, that was one thing I said. It's not really pure water, but it can actually still at least give you the moisture and stuff you need. It's also, needs to be dependent on make sure that it's not anything that is toxic or poisonous. So you need to be familiar with
you're not drinking poison ivy?
Yeah. You need to be familiar. That's got to not be good for you.
It's got to be uncomfortable.
Make sure you're familiar with the etymology. Is that the right word?
Sure. Why not?
I don't know.
Who's gonna correct you?
Somebody would leave a comment somewhere. I'm thinking etymology is the right word, but we'll have to double check that.
Now,
for sure.
really, the best thing you want to do is stumble across a watermelon field.
Yes, but
all the water you need
and food. But then hopefully, etymology is completely nothing to do with this. What's the word for understanding the plant and animals and stuff? Or the plant,
the ecology, not the ecology.
I don't know, whatever. Let's just go with the fact that
we're going to edit this out, and then we'll just come back with
we'll just do the correct word voiced over, like flora and fauna, and then clearly distinguished out.
Yeah, no one will know.
Anyway, so etymology actually has to do with words and stuff. So I was kind of close because I was trying to think of a word. But anyway.
Did you look up entomology?
Ecology, no, that's what you said. Whatever it is, you want to be familiar with what's edible and what's poisonous in your area before you necessarily start trying to tap into vines and stuff. But this one guy I was watching, it was those giant, thick grapevine things hanging from the tree. And so basically he just used his knife as kind of like a drill, basically. Just put the point in and turned it and dug a little hole in it with the point of the vine that was drooping down towards the ground, put a cup underneath it, and just had the liquid dripping out.
I've seen it nearly flowing out of vines.
The other is from trees as well.
Yeah.
Now, that also is going to be somewhat dependent on the time of the year and things like that. From what I was reading, you're going to get a much better flow in the springtime. Or in some trees, the winter is actually a better time to do it because of the fact of the tree trying to, I guess there's got more of a flow of the sap and internal stuff because of how cold it is outside, I guess. I don't understand exactly. I just know that's what I read. Spring was the best. Spring was the best. Winter would be the second choice. But what was really cool is how they did it. And this was without you can go buy you could buy a tap.
We're actually going to buy some tap because we have a maple tree back there, I think.
Yeah. That was one of the trees they were talking about using.
It's a black walnut tree, so we're going to get some black walnut syrup.
Oh, that's cool. But the thing, what I'm thinking is, not everybody's going to go buy a tap to keep in their survival bag just in case.
I mean, it's tiny.
But what he did was pretty cool. So he used his knife, which everybody should have because you can never have too many knives.
Right.
So he used his fixed blade knife, and basically he showed kind of like angling it. Like basically you make a V into the tree, but the V you do each leg of the V. You're cutting out a strip of the bark to make like a 1/2 inch wide leg of the V. I would like to do this something along the lines of when we do the video for this to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. But so it's not just taking the edge of the knife and carving a V in the tree. You actually want to cut a V shape out of the tree.
I see.
And then at the base of the V, you'll use your knife to do that same kind of like drill the hole in there. And then he just took a small twig to kind of stick that into the hole he drilled into the tree, so that now basically what's happening is the moisture from the tree is flowing down the V to that crotchal area of the V that you described earlier. Gets that twig, and that twig is basically acting like the spigot to run down into. Then now you put a cup there to collect the water.
God, that's got to take forever.
Again, like he said, not something that's going to be you're not going to get gallons of water from that, but it's something that can help you to hold off the dehydration if needed. So I think that kind of exhausts all the areas of how to that I'm aware of.
Unless we want to start talking about specific things like beaches or deserts and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be harder to get into. Maybe we could always do something more specialized if we ever wanted to in the future. I mean, you're at the beach. I guess you get salt water and try and distill it.
Yeah, hang on. Where did I see that at?
That's and then obviously in the deserts you can get moisture
dig a
from
beach
cactuses.
So typically behind the first sand dune, 100 feet from shore or so, dig a 3 to 5 foot hole, line the bottom with rocks. Yeah. So I guess the sand is filtering out the water.
Filtering the salt out of the water.
So you just dig a hole, shore it up so that it's not just collapsing with sand.
Yeah.
You know how that goes. And then just allow the water.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So there's all kinds of stuff. And again, it's going to be a lot of specifics based on the region you're from. Most of what we're going to do, obviously, when we do the video, is going to have to be based on what we can do here.
Yeah. We're not traveling
in our location.
I guess we could travel to the beach. Avoiding water substitutes. This is only a couple things I saw. Alcohol. I mean, all these things are pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But don't drink alcohol because it can dehydrate you and cloud your judgment. Don't drink your blood or anybody else's blood.
Yeah.
That's other than gross.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. And then, of course, seawater.
Yeah.
And then it says urine because it can contain harmful body waste and is 2% salinity.
Yeah. Now,
salinity.
And that'll definitely be more so the more dehydrated you get.
Yeah.
However, this is interesting while we're on the subject of the water and distillation, since that was the last subject we talked about. One of the things I read was actually you could urinate into the hole that you were distilling from, because it's essentially going to distill the water out of the urine.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that I would want to go so far as to make you got a bunch of people stranded with you make a communal pee hole and then just start distilling that. Like, that might get a little weird, but
it's effective.
It was a thought that I hadn't thought of that before, that you could utilize that as a method for getting a little extra moisture to distill.
Yeah.
So now let's assume you've got a lake or a stream that you can drink from. We were going to talk too about some of, and this is going to be kind of some of what we cover. I want to try the tapping of the water from the tree when we do our video.
Yeah.
That we share later this month. But obviously, and I think as far as the finding water, the gathering rain is kind of self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
But tapping the tree and the digging a little pit to do the distilled water would be two things to demonstrate. Yeah. And then,
I mean, we could talk about how to distill water here, but I think it might just be easier to demonstrate it and discuss it on the video.
Well,
otherwise we have to kind of.
I want to do specifically for distilling the water too. I want to make that little distilled pit.
Yeah.
Dig the hole. I want to test it. That's something I read about.
And I want to do the above ground one that I've seen before when I was a kid.
Well, the one with digging the hole and the tarp, I remember reading about that when I was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't really understand how it worked. I didn't realize that it was the heat and the evaporating the water.
Distilling, for the listeners, distilling is you're capturing water vapor.
Yeah.
And it's condensing it, so it's turning it back into
liquid
form.
And basically, that's what's purifying it, because the water that either because of what's evaporating or being released, coming up from the steam, is pure water.
Yeah. You can't. So I mean, you can put nasty water, you can put urine, whatever in that.
Put salt water.
You can put salt water, and it's going to leave all the contaminants, everything behind, because the only thing that releases is just water vapor.
So really, pure. So you could, and again, like you said, I would like to plan on for this video setting up something where we could do a full test on this, but really you can set up ways with like a tarp over your fire.
Yeah.
You got to be careful though, because you don't want the smoke. The smoke would from the fire can contaminate the distilled water.
Unless you like that smoky, oaky taste.
Yeah, but you could basically boil water. We want to boil water and recapture that steam. So if you're stranded out in the middle of the woods where you don't have all the stuff to actually set up a distillery, you could utilize things like a plastic tarp hanging above it to capture it, turn it back into the moisture, and collect water that way. But that's going to
if you've built a nice Dakota fire pit, you don't have to worry about the smoke contamination.
Yeah. But as we saw in the video, I did not build a nice Dakota fire pit, so mine would get contaminated.
You built like a Montana fire pit.
An Alabama fire pit.
Yeah.
Um,
I was still trying to keep you in that general region of the Dakotas and Michigan, Montana.
So let's say you've got the river, stream, lake. So now you've got your water source.
Yeah.
Now, what are the steps to take to be able to drink that water?
Right.
So I think the first two we wanted to talk about are items you can keep in your bag.
Right. Well, we need to discuss that there is a difference between purification and filtration.
Distilling is a purification.
Right. Distilling,
boiling.
Purifying is getting rid of bacterial contaminants.
Yeah.
The filtration is you're getting particulates out.
Yeah. Now, there are still some filtration processes that help remove the bacteria, the bacteria and viral stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the life straw.
Yeah,
it's purifying and filtering. We're going to talk about
drinking it through a shirt is a filtration,
but it's not at all purifying that water. But so that's one thing I want to talk about is making a filter.
Yeah. To
filter water if you're out in a situation that need it. And again, not necessarily 100% guaranteed, but better than drinking it straight from the lake.
Yeah.
One of the ones we mentioned already was like the life straw, or it doesn't have to be name brand life straw. I think that's life straw has just kind of become the catch-all.
Yeah.
Kind of like a crescent wrench.
Yeah. I don't know if ours is a life straw or not.
A crescent wrench is a type of wrench that you use. Crescent was the brand name, but
no, I got you.
Anyway.
I've seen those at Walmart before.
Yeah. So life straw is just the kind of catch-all name. Like, I've got one. So the one I actually brought it with me because I wanted to talk about it. Looking at it is Sawyer brand.
Okay, yeah.
So this one that I've got, and we'll show it on the video too. It's a small. Like, I've seen some of the life straw ones that are like 6 inches long.
This podcast is not supported
by Sawyer or Life Straw. Yeah, Sawyer was just happened to be the one I bought off of Amazon. So what's really cool about this one that I bought, and I think it was $19 for this. So it's got this is only a few inches long. Like what, 4.5 inches, 5 inches maybe?
Yeah, sure.
So it came with a bag and it came with the actual filter itself with a straw. So there's a few different ways you can use this life straw. Like we talked about, like let's say you found a crevice in a tree or some rocks that had some water in it. It's got marked on here which way the water flows.
Oh, so nice big arrows too.
Yeah, the big arrow showing you water flow. So on the incoming side of the water flow would be where you could put the straw in there, so that it can get down into the water, and then you can attach it and you could drink straight from the water source. I have not tested this out yet. I always kind of felt like had a hard time just looking at the whole drinking straight from a lake through this straw. But I've
got a lake. I wouldn't drink out of it naturally, but
I've read so many reviews. I've watched the videos of people. I've read the not just the like YouTube people reviewing it, but the actual scientific reviews behind that. This is supposed to work. Like whatever the filtration stuff it's got in here is 99.9% effective. Somewhere along those lines. But you can use this in a couple different ways. Like I said, you could drink straight from the water source.
Are you going to drink out of a lake with that?
I don't know.
It's a pond.
So here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I will do. I'm not going to drink straight from the lake. What I am going to do is this, though. I'm going to use, and we'll get to the back, like the other components, but I'm going to filter it through this life straw and nothing else. Then I'm going to test it with the water tester that I got.
And then I'll drink it.
Then I will taste a sip of it.
Because you know me. I drank. What was that?
My boss.
I drank pine straw tea out of a
out of a old peanut butter container.
An old peanut butter container. The Deer Lake.
My boss's phrase applies in this scenario of trust but verify.
Yeah.
So I want to trust that this is going to work, and I will drink from it. But before I do, I still want to use the water tester that I bought. I want to test the water from the lake beforehand, and I want to test it after.
What kind of claims do they have? If you get dysentery, can you go back and get your money back?
I don't know. But anyway, back to how this works. The ways you can use this. You can attach the straw and you can drink it straight from the source. It actually has on the inflow side of the water filter, you can actually screw this onto the top of a water bottle.
Oh, nice.
It's like a standard water bottle, soda bottle, any of those types of things. This will actually screw onto it. So now you've got your water that you can now gather that lake water with you.
So you can
put it in that
you
water
can fill
bottle.
the lake. You can fill the bottle with the lake water, and then
you can take this with you, so you're not stuck being there next to the lake the whole time, and you can drink. This will, drink it from your filter.
Nice.
This also comes with a bag. It's a 16-ounce bag that rolls up
So it's basically a water bottle.
Yeah, it's basically a plastic water bottle that can be rolled up into almost nothing.
Yeah.
And it's got the lid that, again, the same size lid, so the life straw flows or screws onto this. Now, one of the things with this is for if you've got let's say you've got a water bottle that you want to keep clean water in, you could actually fill this bag with the lake water, and then you can push it through the filter into your water bottle,
which is neat. So you're basically reversing the process.
You're just filtering the water through the life straw that you're not ready to drink right now, so that you can store it into another container. And all of the nice thing is you can roll this bag up with the straw kind of in between it while it's rolled up. So with these two pieces, take up hardly any space at all in your bag. Yeah. I bought this to go in my backpack I'm putting together, like my outdoor survival hiking camping trip backpack. I am very much considering buying another one to put in my EDC bag.
Well, I like that too, and I might,
because of how small this is. It's not something.
I might do that.
So I really like that as far as the life straw goes. Now, the other thing that I've got in my outdoor bag that I'm not going to put in my EDC bag are the water purification tablets. I've never utilized those either.
And I mean, because there you would still have to Sorry, I have to rearrange my body because my back is now
getting agitated.
Starting to get agitated.
So that's a purification, and the thing is this: you still in a lot of situations may need to use both methods.
Yeah, you don't want to. If something still has a lot up garbage in it, you still don't want to just clean out the bacteria and still drink the garbage.
You wouldn't necessarily want to go like from your lake back there. I would not just go take a cup, scoop out some of your lake water and put a water purification tablet in there and then drink it. Because even though maybe now I've killed the bacteria and the viruses in there, there's still gunk and crap floating around in there that I don't want to drink.
Floating in that.
So you would want to. So in that scenario, you would want to filter it and purify it. But the water purification tablets,
that's where we hide the bodies in that lake.
Yeah. So but it's been a while, so they probably have already completely been used up. But you want the purification tablets because of the fact. So the life straw does both, filters and purifies the water. That's why I got this in the bag, and supposedly you can filter like 10,000 plus gallons of water through here. They even actually tell you.
Keep track of that then.
Well, they actually even tell you too that you could use the bag and you basically reverse it and force the water back through it the opposite way
and clean it out
to help clean it out so that you can continue utilizing it.
So you should probably do that about every 5,000.
I don't. They didn't give a number of how often to do it, but if let's say I was in a situation where I'm using this to purify water I needed for survival, I would probably every couple days do that reverse flow through there. Maybe overkill and may not need to do it that much, but I'd still probably do it that way. So anyway, now let's say if you've got clean water, let's say you've got a crystal clear lake, you've got a crystal clear stream, whatever. So you don't really need to filter because there's nothing in the water. That'd be a great thing to use the water purification tablets for.
Yeah.
Now, I've read that it does not necessarily taste good after you use the water purification tablets.
Forget that.
But
I'll drink the dirty water.
At least it's cleaned everything out for you. So those are two items that if you're going to be out in the woods, where you're in a situation where you're in danger of needing water, I would say those are two items I would keep in my bag all the time if I'm out in the woods. The next method you've got is boiling.
Yeah. I did see this one thing for a filtration is wood and tubing.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
I wonder if we're looking at the same places.
Could be.
No, but it's like a not a hardwood, but like a sapling.
Yeah.
And you put it in you have to carve out the wood that you can kind of slip it inside of a tubing.
Yeah.
And you drink through it.
Yeah.
And it'll actually eliminate
the natural wood acts as a filter.
Yeah, and it'll eliminate 99% of the bacteria.
But I also it's a very slow process.
It's got to be able to draw the water through that wood.
Yeah, and that's why it's got to be a live tree. It can't be a dead tree.
Yeah,
because you need the wood to still have the natural moisture in there to help. Pull that through
the osmosis.
And like you said, it's got to be. You want it to be a soft wood, not a hardwood.
It says with this method, you'll be able to produce up to 4 liters of filtered drinking water a day.
Interesting.
Which is enough for a couple people.
So let's talk about other filtering, and then we'll talk about boiling afterwards. So one thing I want to demonstrate in the video too is actually making like a little survival filter for yourself. Now again, this is just for filtering the water. It's not going to purify it.
Right.
It may help add some with what we want to talk about, what we're going to do, but if possible, again, let's say you have no other options, this would be better than just drinking straight from a river and stream.
Yeah.
But I would still probably say, even after filtering it, I would still boil it.
Yeah.
This is going to be good. Now, this is also good. You can go a little less detailed on this if you're just trying to filter to get gunk out, and then you're going to boil the water. This would be, though, one of my choices if I had nothing else to do. I had no means of boiling the water, but I could put this together. Would work. But anyway, it would be a little bit easier to show in the video when we do.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it was taking let's say you got an empty water bottle because you went out hiking, so you drank all your water and ran out of it. So you've got your water bottle. Would be to
don't throw away your water bottle.
Don't throw away your water bottle,
especially if you're hiking.
Now, a couple different things. Preferably, you want to have 2 water bottles so you can do both methods with it. But the better, the one way to do it would be to cut the bottom off of the water bottle. So now you've cut the bottom off. Now you've got the screw top at one end. So the first would be to take a thin piece of cloth, like preferably cotton or polyester, like a piece from your shirt, and wrap that over the mouth of the water bottle, and then screw the cap back on. So now you've got a little cloth filter there. You'll poke a hole in the lid. If you can, hopefully you've been able to build a fire and create yourself some charcoal.
Yeah.
And you want to kind of smash that to make a finer charcoal, not just big pieces. But the video I was watching, and I think we'll kind of demonstrate this a little bit too, would be to have a piece of cloth that you can wrap up. So again, maybe a piece you've cut from a shirt or something like that.
I got some beautiful charcoal I should grab.
Oh, yeah.
I was burning that wood that I burned
over
here.
Yeah.
It's a super lightweight charcoal.
Yeah,
it's really bizarre how lightweight it is. But
that'd probably be perfect.
That'd probably be perfect. So if I can break it up into smaller pieces, so I need to do some more burning because I think I used it. I still got a bunch.
So you want to take wrap it up in the cloth, and then we should using a rock or something like that to break this up into and create a very fine amount of finer charcoal in there. So that'll be, you stuff that into the bottom of your water bottle up all the way up against the lid. The mouth. Yeah. Next on top of that would be to utilize some fresh, if you can get some fresh wet grass that's still alive. That's a good choice. You can do without this if you need to, but if not, that would be a great thing to use.
Hopefully not one that the deer has peed on.
Yeah. Although hopefully the charcoal would help with that some. Kind of get that balled up. You don't want to just put loose grass in. You kind of want to squish it into a ball, rub it together, and force that in there. Then next would be some moist sand. And the reason I say moist sand as far as something not just random dirt off the ground. You want to get preferably, it's probably going to be something you're going to want to get close to the lake or riverbed that you're getting the water from, because that's going to help kind of filtering also. Yeah. Pack that on top of the grass. Then next would be some small stones from the river or lake. Hopefully, river would probably be a little bit easier to find some, but some smaller stones, and then progressively go up in size on some of the rocks that you put in there. Then now you've got your filter. So you're going to pour the water in from where you cut the bottom of the water bottle off.
Your water bottle parfait.
Yeah, and now your water is filtering through the rocks, the sand, and the grass. That's kind of just helping filter it a little bit and move it through there, and then the charcoal cloth. So again, it's not if you've ever used one of those filters that you can get, you get the filter,
like a Brita filter,
yeah.
This podcast has not been paid.
You'll notice how once it first starts flowing, it's kind of slow, but then it remains a constant trickle as that water's continuing to flow through. So that's going to help you. Now the charcoal will kind of help a little bit, but again, we don't have it set up in the same way as some of these other systems do to guarantee that you're really pulling out all the bacteria and viral stuff that's in there. But if it came down to being able to drink water where I didn't have a container to boil it, I'd be more inclined to drink after this filter if possible.
I agree. I'd like to make that and test that out.
I want to do that. And then like I said, we've talked about it a little bit, but then you've got your boiling. You can boil water. And you can use, hopefully if you've been out camping or hiking, you've got a container of some sort that you were cooking in. You could use that to boil water. Fun one, I know you and I talked about it the other day, and you didn't believe me right away when I told you this.
Yeah,
that we're going to test in there.
I'm still a little incredulous about it.
If you've got another water bottle, because for making the filter, we talked about cutting the bottom of the water bottle off. Yeah. So if you've got another water bottle where you basically would cut the top off instead, you can fill that with water, and then you can actually boil water in that water bottle. And I have done this, so I do know that it works.
I still don't trust
you. Would fill the plastic water bottle up with water, and you'll put that water bottle in the middle of your fire. and because of conduction,
because of magic.
Yes, this magic
Witchcraft.
sorcery called conduction. You will not burn the fire. Will not burn the water bottle. You can actually, or melt it. Yeah. Now, any of the edges, like the top of the water bottle that doesn't have water touching it, will melt away. But once it's at the water level, you can boil it in that.
And you did this with a paper cup also.
I did it with a paper cup also.
And did you say, was it styrofoam you could also do it in?
I think styrofoam. I know I've done the plastic and the paper. I have not. I don't think I've specifically done the styrofoam yet.
You know, you can use your hands.
It's the same process.
So you put you cup the water in your hands. You put your hands right down in the fire.
You go ahead and test it. I'll let you test that one out. I'll test the plastic and the styrofoam, and you can test the hands.
Conduction, man. It's science.
Yeah.
Don't try that at home.
Yeah. Don't
Don't put your hands on fire.
Now, so you could, if it came down to it in a pinch, you can boil water in a plastic bottle. You could also, like, soda can, cut the lid off a soda can. I mean, you don't even really have to cut the lid off of it. You could just filter the water into it.
Well,
and
then you're not cutting your lips open.
Yeah, that's true too. But you can boil it, or got a can of beans or something. Eat your beans. You can use any of those containers. The plastic water bottle, more likely if you're out hiking in the woods or out camping, you're probably going to be more likely to have a water bottle than you are a soda can.
Or even like if you might find, if you're on a river or something, you might find a piece of trash floating down the river.
Yeah.
That would work like that.
Yeah.
I would never have grabbed a paper cup
to boil water
before now to boil water in, but now if I see one floating on the river, I'm like, oh, shoot, I can drink out of that.
Boil water in that. So I definitely want to show those in the videos, because I know, the first time I read that, and this was years ago, this was when we were still out in Colorado, I remember I read that, and I'm like, that's crap.
That's a lot.
Not going to work. I went out, it was wintertime. I went and started the grill up just so I could go test out this. And I was amazed. I went and grabbed the kids. Aaron and the kids weren't nearly as excited about it as I was. I thought that was the coolest thing since sliced bread. They did not share my level of enthusiasm. They thought it was cool, and Aaron was like, "Oh, that's neat." Yeah. But I thought it was really cool, so we want to test that. Now, I will say this, and this came from me reading about this, not because of my scientific knowledge. Boiling water in the plastic bottle
will release,
and I forget the name now, but the dangers of microwaving certain types of plastic and all that. This will release particulates that are not good for you. So this is a way to clean the water. You don't want to get dysentery and die of faster dehydration out in the woods before you can get rescued.
But you're likely not going to die from some kind of polycarbon.
Yeah, but it can cause health problems, even if it is health problems down the road.
Yeah.
So that is not the preferred method of obtaining your water. It is good to use in an emergency situation so you don't die of dehydration, but you do not want to sustain yourself for a long period of time of drinking water that was boiled in a plastic container.
So you might want to grab that McDonald's cup that's down
find something else that you can utilize. This will help you survive while you're building yourself some giant distilleries, making a bunch of buried...
We're making whiskey now?
Digging a bunch of holes. No, for distilling water. But, again, if you, and it all depends on the level of emergency situation that you are in and the level of survival. If you are in one of those, plane crashed out in the middle of the Canadian
after
forest,
you've eaten all of your teammates.
And you're finding that you're going to have to survive for potentially months at a time. Boiling water in a plastic container will help you survive your initial dehydration while you build yourself a more permanent method of water purification. But it's a good tip to know for survival. So that, like I said, that'll be another thing we test in the video. I bought and I know I mentioned it with the Life Straw, I bought that water testing thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious of one of the things I want to do in the video just for data points is I want to test the water and get a reading of both what's coming from the stream back there and the lake. And then I want to do a post-test after using the Life Straw, after using the purification tablets.
After your filter
after
lasagna.
The filter, filter parfait.
Filter parfait.
And then also after just straight boiling.
Yeah.
So with those, those four methods, I would like to test the before and after and see how the water reads, just to kind of get a gauge of.
That sounds good.
I don't want to necessarily. We got enough kids. We could have them each test drinking.
And see who gets dysentery first.
Yeah, see who gets sick first.
That's a good idea.
We'd start with the kids we like better can drink from the Life Straw and the water purification tablets.
So my kids.
And then your kids can drink from the So that's kind of the stuff we found in our research as far as handling water in a situation like this.
Yeah.
So the next will be
Purifying.
Actually, yeah. Next will be doing the video to actually test out some of this stuff. So again, great to have the theoretical knowledge.
Yeah.
Now we need to put some of it to the test and see how it goes. Because I think, like, I know we've talked about it, but I really like that one. You know, obviously we found when we did the Dakota fire pit, having the knowledge and translating that into actually doing it was a bit of a difference. And, you know, we found the same thing when we did the fire starting too, but
yeah. Although I felt a little bit better with the fire pit because mine actually worked.
Yeah.
When we built the fire before.
And I liked the fact that it seemed like, you know, in theory, it seemed pretty easy and pretty simple, but actually getting into trying to build it was a little bit more involved, and it definitely does have some the results of whether you build it a certain way or not makes a difference on how it performs. Yeah. So you know, I'm looking forward to this one too, as far as the water goes. With you know, trying the water purification tablets and the life straw is just more to say I've done it and not be doing it for the first time if I ever found myself in that scenario. Mm-hmm. But the actual making the water filter and trying to filter it through there and see, I'm curious to see how that actually works. Same with tapping the tree. I mean, we're not in the springtime here, so we may not get a lot.
I mean, we could try to find a tree that's, you know, not hardwood.
I mean, you got a ton of trees out there. I'm sure we could find something that we could.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know that, you know, anybody's going to be thrilled about us putting a giant V in one of the trees up here up front where everybody can see it.
These are my trees. Who cares?
But I think we could find one. I mean, what's that? What tree is that one over there? The little bushy tree.
The little short one.
Yeah.
That's the one on the bottom that's growing out is a red bud. The bigger one is some kind of oak, and then the crepe myrtles. Crepe myrtles are a softwood.
Yeah.
That might be a good one to do.
Yeah, I know the oak's a hardwood.
And I got a ton of pecans, but that's not a hardwood.
Yeah. I wonder how the crepe myrtle would do.
Or this.
But I wonder,
Chinese, whatever kind of shrubbery that we got growing everywhere.
Yeah, I also don't know
overtaking.
I don't know if the crepe myrtle would be something that would be you could drink the sap from that. I don't know. We'll have to do a little research on that too. Because again, like we talked about, it is something you need to be aware of because you don't want to drink something that's going to make you sick.
Right. And some of these trees have some nice, crotches.
Yeah.
So after it rains,
you can go drink from
the tree crotch.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll rain before we do the video.
I'm glad I read that.
Yeah.
Otherwise I would have been calling it a V or something.
Something lame.
Less sensational.
You know? Something less scientific. I mean, because if you read it on the internet, it's got to be factual.
Scientific and factual.
Yeah, actually, it would be kind of cool if it rained shortly. We need to look at the weather and do the video like right after it rains.
Yeah, well, the way the weather works here, you might know that day.
Yeah. We'll add a little snippet in there after it's rained, so... So cool. So I think that'll kind of wrap up what we're going to talk about here today. We'll be within the next week and a half or so, we'll do the video and share that, and then of course we will follow up at the end of the month with the follow-up podcast on kind of reviewing how all of it went with the testing from the video and what our thoughts are from that. So I think that's all I got. You got anything else to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, I guess that'll wrap it.
Like you just said, do you have anything else, Dad?
Do you have anything else to add?
No, son.
I mean, you are a little bit older than me, so you are like the fatherly figure,
right?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
All right. Well, I guess that'll wrap it up, and we'll be back with the video and then the follow-up podcast here shortly.
Yes. Is that goodbye?
Yeah, I guess that's it.
That's it.
All right. See you later.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode. If you'd like to show us support, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, as well as leave a comment. Also, you can swing over to our website at suburbanoutdoorsman.com, as well as all of our social media accounts. They all have exclusive content, as well as additional information on your hosts, Sean and Kevin, and our individual journeys that led us here.